What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to the Mets postgame show here with your hosts, Zach and CP. We do apologize. We are a little bit late. We were intending to do this as soon as the game ended, but our streaming platform decided to stop working at that very moment. Go figure, technical difficulties, and hopefully we don't run into any technical issues during this stream. If at some point you can't hear us or we are lagging, please go ahead and let us know in the chat. But guess what? It's a sweep for our New York Mets. We're getting into not only the sweep, the offensive performances from, all of it coming from home runs from Jeff McNeil and Brandon Nimmo. A little bit of a scare there at the end with Stanek just simply not getting the job done. Edwin Diaz looked a little erratic before he got the job done. And we have to talk about Kodai Senga's injury. Unfortunately, what a gut punch that is in what is otherwise such a happy day for us Mets fans, because now they improve to 45 and 24, 21 whole games over 500. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a spectacular season thus far, and we are in the middle of June. Zach, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Happy the Mets were able to pull this one out. Sadly, Senga went down with an injury. Hopefully, it proves to not be something that's lingering on for the rest of the season. And hopefully, Stanek, who I really like, can start getting it together a little bit more and being able to shut teams down in those later innings. But before we do that, you know what we got to do.
We gotta spam those W's, Mets fans. Spam those W's. It's a sweep. W's in the live chat. Let's go. Let's go, baby. It wouldn't be a Mets victory without spamming the W's in the live chat. So, yeah, absolutely 100%. Really well said. And you know what? At this point, 45 and 24, there's really nothing else that you can say other than the fact that the New York Mets are a damn good baseball team. But let's get into it and let's look at the box score here. We'll talk about Kodai Senga injury. I kind of want to get that out of the way first because he was off to such a phenomenal start here. Could have easily
very good today.
Another inning or so, maybe even two innings. And we've been seeing that as of recent. We didn't get to do a post game yesterday talking about David Peterson's complete game shutout of the Nationals 5-0. But these pitchers are starting to go deeper into the ball game, and even if they don't have their best stuff, they're able to deliver 5+ innings of competitive baseball, and that's lovely to see. We do know that unfortunately it's going to be an IL stint for Kodai Senga now. He went down in that 6th inning with a hamstring injury. It's a hamstring strain is what they're labeling it, and he went 5 2/3 innings pitched today over 77 pitches, only 1 hit given up, 5 strikeouts, only 1 walk as well. He was limiting the traffic on the bases, and his season ERA goes down to 1.47, which is just phenomenal. I mean, he is a leader, not only in the NL, but in the entirety of the league. He is a top 3 pitcher ERA wise. I'm not actually quite sure where he stacks up, like specifically in the MLB ERA wise, but that 1.47 is definitely beat.
Yeah, first for starting pitchers. I'm not sure with all pitchers. Relievers and starting pitchers are in a different category, really, when you're breaking that down. So he does have the best ERA in the majors. Hopefully, this is not a long injury and he can stay atop that lead because he misses enough time. He's not going to qualify for any of those. And that's neither here nor there. That's not really of major concern. The being getting these awards are great personally, but I'm sure at this moment in time, a lot of these players aren't thinking about personal success. They're thinking about success for the team, which we need Senga. This might be his best start of the season. In all honesty, I thought he looked incredible today. He did a great job mixing his pitches around to be able to keep those hitters off balance. Even when his stuff isn't dominating, he's still able to produce weak content and get some outs. So. Hopefully this is more of a Vientos hamstring strain, how it seems like that's going to be something that's very mild, and he should be back soon. Hopefully it's of that category. But the one thing I do want to mention, and it's kind of a negative thing, Senga is someone who's a perfectionist, and he probably will not touch a field until he is 100%. And so
Yes.
I don't expect him to push it. I don't expect the Mets to push it. So to end on end my Senga rant on a negative note, I do not expect him back until after the All-Star break.
It's a gut punch, and I know that people want to talk about how this team is built to withstand an injury like this because they are, and that's the good thing. That's the good news, and we will get to that point. But like, we got to talk about what transpired first, and even with the victory, even with the sweep, fans, myself included, saying that it's a gut punch. That's an opinion based, but like that's what almost the entire fan base is feeling right now. So it's okay to feel a gut punch, even with a sweep, even with this team being 21 games over 500, because that's what it is. You have the MLB's leader in ERA going down. He was absolutely phenomenal for the New York Mets in the first half of this season. And like you said, he is a perfectionist, right? He is going to take that extended time, and rightfully so, because he's not he came into the league already at 30 plus years old.
Yeah.
This guy's body needs some time to heal for sure. And we saw that last year with the calf injury, multiple times with the calf injury. And so I agree that timeline's probably going to be extended, just erring on the side of caution. And the same thing isn't said for a guy like Mark Vientos, who's much younger and who's healing a lot better with that hamstring strain that we thought was going to sideline him for a month plus. And he's already on the fast track, taking BP, coming back. So it is next man up mentality. But damn, Zach, lose a guy like Kodai Senga with the way that he's been performing absolutely sucks. And not only that, in the short term, I believe he was scheduled, if I'm not mistaken, he was scheduled to pitch against Atlanta as his next start. And
He was
of course, it's not
second
going to
in that
happen.
series. Yeah,
It
I
is
guess
officially.
Yeah. And I guess it's something interesting to kind of segue off of that with Paul Blackburn. I mean, today, there was a John Heyman or someone, John Morosi maybe, he tweeted out saying that the Mets are in the market for a reliever. And then he mentioned that teams have been calling the Mets about Paul Blackburn. And, this is probably that they definitely aren't trading him now, at least for the time being, with this injury coming up, because he's been good for the Mets. He was solid. I think it was against the Dodgers. It was great against the Dodgers, if I'm not mistaken. And he came
Fantastic.
in the Rockies, right? So, it's going to be his spot now until Minaya Montas already. And honestly, it might be a 6-man rotation until that time, until both are up to at full strength, because they might need the extra just coming off some pretty decent injuries, missing half the season so far. So we'll see where the Mets go from here. I expect probably someone like Kranick to come back up, because I think you can call anyone back up off injury. So I guess Max Kranick would be the guy to go to, or maybe Nunez is ready. So we'll have people to fill that hole. It sucks, and hopefully this isn't something that not torpedoes the Mets season, but maybe torpedoes them for a series or so with an injury like this.
I would think that the next man up, talking about who's coming up from the minor leagues, would be either Nunez or Kranick, 100%. Either one of those guys. I mean, take your best guess. Both are viable options. The other note that I have, Blackburn definitely at this point is going to make his way back into the rotation in the back end, with Kodai Senga going on the IL. Again, we don't really know the gravity. I haven't seen the updates on, Twitter just yet about what the gravity of this strain is, because they usually have a grade for these strains. We don't have anything like that. It was good to see him walk off the field, down the steps to the tunnel under his own power after being down for a minute. But another guy like Montas, and I don't like to make too much of a big deal of rehab numbers, but he's not doing well. I mean, 4 starts across 2 starts in high A ball and 2 starts in triple A. His collective combined ERA is 9. I mean, he's not doing well in those rehab starts. So I think that they're going to take their time as well with Montas and Minaya specifically to come back and just see if that, the guys that they have right now can hold down the fort until that happens. So, it sucks. And the other thing that I know that Pete Alonso feels terrible about this. I know you could see it in his face when the injury happened and after Senga was walking off, and Senga did a really good job. I'm not saying Senga is lying, saying that he felt the hamstring before the throw actually happened, before the injury actually happened. But this is another case where Pete Alonso's throws have come back to hurt a little bit. And
Yeah.
it's not all Pete Alonso's fault. Let's be honest. Kodai Senga has had a history of lower leg injuries as well. It was a little bit of a weird play where he had to reach his leg back down. So I'm not going to place all the blame on Pete Alonso, but let's also be honest, is that a good throw probably mitigates that injury. I would have rather Pete Alonso just sailed it over his head
Yeah.
and Kodai Senga's like, let this ball go and just next batter up. I would have rather that have happened rather than getting that out against, I believe the batter was CJ Abrams, who is definitely hustling down the line. So it is what it is. You can't change what it is. This is a baseball. This is sports, right? This is a 162 season, a game of 162, a season of 162, I should say. And injuries happen. I mean, the Mets are not the only team suffering from this, right? The injury bug. And we've
Yeah.
seen this time and time again with this organization. We even saw it last year. Even the Braves, who are in a much worse off scenario record wise, are dealing with a plethora of injuries. It happens. It's baseball. What's done is done. Would I like to see Pete Alonso start to really be serious about his throws? And I'm sure he practices already. I'm not saying that he doesn't, but he needs to start executing those throws. But now we have to talk about a life, at least for the next, I would say, you said all-star break, so we're talking about a month plus of baseball without Kodai Senga, which is fine because like you said, and like we're going to say right now, I don't think as good as Kodai Senga has been, as good as this team is, this is not something that should derail the Mets
No.
season whatsoever. And I understand that June is a very scary month, historically speaking, in this organization. I understand that full well. But the way that this team has been built, and we talked about it with the bullpen when they're kind of fizzling out for a little bit early on this season. People are talking about, oh, look at who was it? Danny Young going down for the season. Then AJ Minter. And the bullpen is fine because David Stearns builds his teams like this and he thinks about this in the offseason. And not only that, in season acquisitions, Luis Castillo, Justin Garza, he's thinking about this, right? And so he's planning for this, contingency plans, plan B, plan C, even plan D. This is something where I think the Mets are still going to be okay, and Kodai Senga can take his time coming back because I think with what the Mets have right now in their rotation, a lot of guys have been good. I think they can hold down the fort. Personally speaking, we'll see.
Yeah, 100%. And one thing I want to touch upon too, ACJ had an interesting comment. Who would be the prospect called up if needed to make a start? I commented back at him. I think it'll be Nolan McLean. I mean, the guy's been incredible, and he's flown through the majors, and he's someone that unlike Brandon Sproat, he's been acclimated to life at AAA much better, almost seamlessly. So we could maybe see the Mets go that route and decide to give him a shot. Do I think Stearns will? Probably not. But it's an interesting thing to bring up because, Tyler McGill is someone who also has been struggling since his great April and has kind of had, good start, bad start, has been back and forth between how he's performed he hasn't been consistent as the other starters have been. So maybe they do decide to go that route, depending on how far away they really do think Montas and Manaea are, because Manaea is still at the beginning towards the middle stages of his rehab assignment, and Montas, while he's probably towards the end of his rehab assignment, has been struggling. So you could see someone like that get a legitimate shot too, especially when other guys in the rotation like Tyler McGill and Griffin Canning of late have been struggling to some degree.
Yeah, guys in AAA been struggling, include Brandon Sproat and Blade Tidwell. We saw Blade Tidwell earlier this season, and so Nolan McLean has been on the fast track up towards his I guess debut in the MLB. And I agree with you. Like, I don't think that we will see it. I mean, he's posted just over 32 innings in AAA thus far. He's looked really good, a 2.48 ERA down there in AAA. But I don't think it's going to happen. I think that David Stearns at this point would much prefer going with what he's got and just making the move with Blackburn and then the corresponding move being a bullpen guy. I think that's what is going to play out here until the Mets hand is forced, right? Until the Mets hand is forced. But then again, I don't think it will on the pitching side because you do have Montas and Manaea coming back, and that is the good news about that. So I don't think that we'll see a high-end pitching prospect making a start for the Mets anytime soon. I will say that, but that's just my thought. We've seen position player-wise around the league with Caglione, Anthony Roman, for these respective teams, the Royals and the Red Sox. Like, these teams are kind of making that decision at this point of the season to roll with some of the top guys that they got in their farm system. Maybe David Stearns follows that route, but when you're talking about pitching, it's a whole different ball game than position players.
100%.
So I would not expect ACJ. That's a really good thought, but I would not expect it. I would not expect it.
Yeah, and those are two teams that are kind of on the cusp. Like they're not world beaters like the Mets are right now. They're not really in great position, at least in the division, to make the playoffs. Let alone even wild card race. I know with the Red Sox, I don't think they are in the playoff picture if the season were to end. So it makes more sense for a team like that trying to create a spark their team and see what they have on a season that's not lost, but is heading in that direction, at least for the Red Sox. So it's not necessarily it's not a smart move, and it's probably not the move the Mets make, just because they have guys on expiring deals that can take over on a fresh start next season after getting a full workload in AAA. So those are guys that are going to be here to stay for some time to keep cost of starting pitchers low, and you don't want to start that clock too early when it's not necessary, because it isn't at this moment in time.
Right. But other than that, I mean, to take you all off the ledge, and to take myself off the ledge a little bit too regarding this injury with Senga, I mean, it's going to be okay. I will say that. I'll be the first one to tell you again. As I said, David Stearns builds these teams for these scenarios. And, the Mets have been relatively, I guess I should say, without taking into consideration the lefties in the bullpen, they've been relatively lucky in terms of the injury front so far this year, in terms of, I guess, mitigating and sidestepping in-season injuries. So that's good. That's good. But the Mets are rolling, as Elvin is saying. What is that? 15 out of the last 18 or 14 out of the last 17, something like that. It's incredible what they're doing right now. And this offense with the long ball. I mean, Gary and Ron in the booth were saying something to the effect of the Nationals scored back when it was still a scoreless ball game. They scored 15 runs all of June so far, and the Mets have 25 home runs in June. Like, that's insane. That's insane. But let's get back into, okay, we'll transition into the offense, because I really want to shout out a couple of guys in this lineup that accounted for the runs in this ball game, because they're swinging really good bats, as is Juan Soto. But let's talk about the bullpen a little bit too, because Luis Castillo comes in, gets the job done, relieving Kodai Senga. Brazaban comes in, gets a double play on 3 pitches, which is really good to see. And then the ball gets handed off to Ryan Stanek. Ryan Stanek needs to get it figured out, man. He is way too talented. He's got good stuff. And I really do think it's gotten to the point where he doesn't need to be seeing high leverage situations like that. I don't, and it wasn't even high leverage though, because it's a 4 ball game and base hit after base hit after base hit. I guess what I should say is that we should not see him closer to the end of the ball game at this point, which sucks, because this is a guy that's done that before. He's pitched in very high leverage, important situations in years past. And something about him this season, and maybe even going back to last season when he was, came onto the New York Mets via trade, it just doesn't look good. And I know that he kind of sidestepped trouble in Colorado thanks to that nice play by Brett Beatty doubling the guy off at third base. But that was a bases loaded situation, nobody out. And if that ball finds the line, that's a different ball game we're talking about, and potentially opening the Colorado series up with the loss. This just can't happen. And I think that for me, I've seen enough from Ryan Stanek to kind of just demote him in this bullpen, and maybe just switch Brazaban and him, because Brazaban is getting the job done. And again, this was not a high leverage situation. We're talking about a 4-0 ball game in the 9th inning, but that's something that can't happen. You got to go out there, lock them down. And quite frankly, Edwin Diaz should not have been out there. And thank goodness that Edwin Diaz found it, because he's been incredible since late. He has been incredible, otherworldly. And that wasn't really fair to come, for him to come into that situation with that kind of trouble. Of course, it was going to take him a little bit to get his control down, which he did after the 2 runs scored. So quick thoughts on the bullpen here before we move on to the offense.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of nailed it on the head. I mean, it was good to see Castillo. He's been really good for the Mets since being traded here from the Diamondbacks, and I'm really shocked at how well he's performed, especially considering how he pitched there in Arizona and then I guess in AAA for a little bit. And Braziban has been nails as always. I mean, he comes in and gets a good double play there, and quick outing for him. And Stanek, he needs to find it somehow, and that's maybe pitching in more middle relief situations and not towards the end of the ball game, lower half of the lineup. And that's not what you expect out of someone like that, because you expect him to be a key piece in this bullpen, especially down the stretch going into postseason, into the postseason. Which I honestly, all this being said, how poorly he's performed basically since I guess the beginning of May, that National Series, end of April, beginning of May. I have no worries with him, at least at the end of the season, because in the playoffs he kicks into another gear where he is just almost unhittable. But right now, he's in the dog days of the season where he's kind of he's let us down a bit. And he's let down the team. So hopefully he can figure it out, and Mendoza will put him in the right position to figure it out. Not throw him into any high leverage situations right now, because he is someone that I do trust in the long run, but not at this moment. And Diaz, it took him a bit to get ready. He came in quick. He came in after probably not throwing too much and getting ready, because I don't think the Mets really thought he needed to be ready. So none of what Diaz did affects how I feel about him, and it shouldn't affect how any Mets fan feels about him, because that's a peculiar situation. You don't really see it too often. The only time you really see it is when someone gets injured, where they have an unlimited amount of time to get ready. They can go up there and throw for 5-10 minutes if they need to. That wouldn't be the case, but he had to get himself ready quick, and this is a Diaz that, even though he is earlier in his career, he was known for just getting ready incredibly quick. He needs that extra time after that patellar tendon injury, and you see what he looks like when he is good and warmed up, and really deeper into the season, he has that electric stuff, and he has been incredibly electric for the Mets since the end of April. So I have no worries with him and the bullpen as a whole, because we have so many guys that you can fit into that late inning role. Braziban, Reed Garrett, Kranick. Even earlier in the season, he was great for the Mets. He's kind of faltered a bit, and Buto's on the upswing. So he's someone that we can maybe look to bridge that middle to late inning, from the middle to the late inning. So it's. You never want to see a reliever struggle like Stanek has, but it's kind of a good time for him to be struggling, because the Mets have other guys they can turn to, and it's not something I'm necessarily worried about.
I know you weren't part of the post game for game 1 of this series, but this has officially turned into a Justin Garza stan channel, by the way.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, like another guy that, listen, Justin Garza is not going to be getting any high leverage situations. I'm fully aware of that, but 98 miles per hour from a guy that just got, brought in for virtually nothing from the Giants organization, would have fine by David Stern. So for those of y'all who are wondering, I will be on the lookout, and I will be talking extensively about Justin Garza's next outing, whenever that may be, and however he does, because if he falters, I'm still going to support the guy. It's a stand channel for a reason. But listen, appreciate you all being here with us. Hit that like button in support of CP and Zach. As David is saying, shout out to David. Again, smash that like button on this stream. It helps us grow. Subscribe to the channel for more Mets content if you like these breakdowns, if you like the discussions around the Mets. And also, as we prop up all the live chat comments, keep dropping those live chat comments. We want to hear what you all have to say right now. I'm scrolling these comments right now. Ricardo's saying deadline, they need a bona fide bullpen arm more so than a bat. And that's what the report, was, though. I forgot who it was from. The report said that the Mets immediately I forgot who the reporter was. I do apologize. But they said that high leverage bullpen arms. It might have been Morosi, but high leverage bullpen arms is what the Mets are targeting and thinking about, at least at this point in time. I do think that they need a bat, though. I still think they need a bat as well. It was good to see also Jesse Winker talking about this sort of situation. Jesse Winker was out there in the outfield earlier on today, hours before the game, running and virtually sprinting, which was really good to see as he's recovering from that, I believe, lower body injury. So we'll see how it plays out. I think the Mets have a lot of options, but it's kind of like, it's too many options at this point for Carlos Mendoza to work with, because you have to, at that point, if you're choosing off of your bench, like who's going to be the DH on any given day, I don't like the platoon DH because guys need to get in a rhythm, but also it's like there's so many ups and downs, and you're expecting Mendoza to call that perfectly and just kind of get a feel for who's on versus who's not in terms of the swing. I guess that's what the manager's job is supposed to be, but it makes it that much tougher when you can have one standalone guy that you trust in and then just give another guy spot starts in between. But anyways, that is besides the point. I think the Mets could use another bat, but the bullpen is definitely, per the early reports, what they're going to be looking for first and foremost. But let's get back into the offense here before we continue, because this is going to be your box score. Lindor takes the over, but he did start the game off with a walk and came around on the home run, inevitably from Mr. Jeff McNeil. And Juan Soto also did walk in that inning to set up that situation for Jeff McNeil. Jeff McNeil has a 911 OPS right now. Over his last 15 days, he is hitting 310 with over 1,000 OPS. His last 7 days, he's hitting 333 with over an 1,100 OPS. This guy is locked in. And by the way, I want to just do this segment on Jeff McNeil right now because, unfortunately for me, not unfortunately. Fortunately for me, I was wrong. I worded that incorrectly because I'm all about giving guys credit, even if I was not in, their camp to begin the season. If these guys shut me the hell up and prove me wrong and contribute to winning baseball for the Mets, I'm going to take that all day long. I know that you can say the same thing. Rob can say the same thing. We're not on here to say we're right 100% of the time, because we are not. And I'm glad to be wrong about Jeff McNeil, because honestly, I know that he's had some up and downs this season thus far, but really, when he came back in that national series alongside Francisco Alvarez, he had a really great series. I was like, this is something that he can build off of in this season. But what was more I guess not important, but more interesting for me to hear from the booth today and Jeff McNeil himself is he said it's really hard to hit for average in this league. That is what Jeff McNeil said directly, who has been a high average guy for most of his career up until this point. So what the booth was basically saying that Jeff McNeil was telling them is that he is trying to maximize the damage that he does in the box now, basically saying that he wants to become more of a gap-to-gap hitter, and in this case, a home run hitter, because he's got 7 home runs on the season, and he's on pace for 15 plus at this point. 15 plus at this point, and we haven't seen that in a long time from Jeff McNeil, right? And so that's really interesting from an approach perspective surrounding Jeff McNeil, trying to prioritize that power and do more damage instead of being what he has been in the past that hasn't worked out for him over the past couple of years, which is a slap hitter the other way, a high average hitter. Do you agree, and do you like that approach? Because I do, quite frankly.
I do, and it's interesting that he says that because after he came up and they started shifting against him, he kind of turned into that slap hitter, and he's never someone that had a ton of home run pop and someone that was a big home run threat. But coming up from the minor leagues in the juice ball era, so to speak, he came up because of how well how much he was hitting the home run in AAA. And in his first full season here, I think he was almost a 20 home run hitter, or even over 20 home runs. So this is someone who at points in his career in AAA and in the majors has been able to hit with some power, and switching, from that to being more of a slap hitter, which worked when the shift was a part of the league, when that was an actual defensive scheme. He was able to do that because they would shift and they wouldn't shift against him. So he can kind of just take what the defense gave him and make that his bread and butter. But since the shift has been abolished, he has become a below average hitter for the league up until this point. So he's someone that's now kind of figured out what he can do with his skill set, and that's drive the ball into the outfield, into the gaps at a high rate. He's someone that he's now trying to find that pitch where he can barrel up and get out there, which is shocking to see and shocking to hear, especially what he's done earlier in his career. So I like the approach. It's something the Mets need out of a 5-hole hitter, someone that can get on base. And even when he doesn't have that 300 plus average, he takes phenomenal at bats. He does not strike out much at all. He's not going to draw you a ton of walks, but he's someone that you always have to fear for, that's going to put the ball in play. And when he is up there with runners in scoring position, even though the numbers haven't been great this year, he's still someone you have to fear because he's going to put the ball in play. He's not going to strike out. He's not going to walk. So if you leave something over the middle of the plate where he can get the barrel out over, he's going to hit it, and he's going to most likely get a hit of some sorts, whether it's a home run, a double, even just a single to drive in the runs. And we've seen that now. And it's good to see him acclimate to what the league has kind of turned into, and basically told everyone, screw you for thinking that he should be traded and not on this team anymore because.
Oh, there goes Zach. I'm not sure if he pushed the wrong button. Are we live? Can anybody hear me still? I'm getting the Wi-Fi signal. Can anybody hear me? Are we good? Hopefully the stream didn't cut out.
I don't know what that was.
Are we good?
Yeah, but the stream just crashed on me. StreamYard just closed out completely.
Yeah.
I'm back.
It's acting up. That's what we said. So we apologize about I expected this. But yeah, continue.
Oh, where was I? It's good to see him do this for the Mets, because I think up until this point, until McNeil has hit this good stretch, this hot streak that he's on, we've been kind of searching for someone to fill that 5-hole. They tried to have it be Vientos or Nimmo when they had Alonso higher up in the order. They've tried Beatty out there. They've even tried, I think, Acuna out there a couple times in that 5 or 6 hole. But it's good to finally see someone that can come through behind Alonso and be an actual protection for him, because he's been great this year. But you've seen at points this year where they're not really giving him pitches to hit. So it's good to actually have some protection behind him. So when pitchers decide to go that route where they're going to pitch around him, they now have to worry about who's up behind him, as opposed to thinking about, all right, now we got out of the top 4 of the order. Let's go and mow through these guys at the bottom half, where the Mets have been weak so far.
If this is the version of Jeff McNeil we're going to consistently get moving forward, or even a fraction of it, this is the top 5 that needs to remain intact 100%.
Yeah.
And even when Vientos gets back, because Vientos, if he gets back, you can put him in the 6 hole. I wouldn't bat an eye. I would not bat an eye. And couple that with the fact that, going, and by the way, there's so many thoughts running in my head here.
Wow.
They were trying to pitch. This is so Jeff McNeil historically, given his approach of being a slap hitter, he would let the ball get in deep into the plate and just push it the other way. And the way to combat that as a pitcher is throwing a guy fastballs inside to jam him, because historically speaking, Jeff McNeil has not been able to get his bat around quick enough. And we've seen a lot of foul balls and just ground outs because fastballs inside have been beating him. The pitch that he hit today for a 3-run home run was a fastball inside from Soroka. And even after that, his very next at bat, Soroka was still trying to get him inside with that fastball. So if Jeff McNeil can consistently keep turning on that fastball and getting doubles out of it and pulling home runs, that is spectacular. That is spectacular. And then naturally, the opposite field part of his game will open up. But that inside fastball is something that clearly opposing pitchers for quite some time now, not just this season thus far, but for quite some time, have been trying to target him with. But the other portion of this lineup is that Brandon Nimmo needs to stay in that 2-hole. Another multi-hit game, another home run for Brandon Nimmo, in which he accounted for the last Mets run of this ball game that they scored, that 4th run with the solo shot, I believe off the foul pole, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
He also turned on a fastball inside, I believe it was. And that's 3 home runs. He had a multi-home run game yesterday, 3 home runs in 2 games. The power is showing, up to 13 home runs on the season. He's going to get to 20 plus home runs again. He could even get to 25 plus home runs again. And the most important thing is that he looks more comfortable in that 2 spot, which is what myself and Rob have been stressing, more so Rob than me, especially in the beginning of the season, but saying how Brandon Nimmo just looks like a different version of himself when he is in front of Juan Soto in that 2 spot, with Soto now in that 3 spot, and he is completely out of this experimental 4 and 5 spot. I guess when there's a lefty on the mound, they'll put him back into that 5 hole, which is what Mendoza has said before. But I don't care if it's lefty or right in the mound. This is the combination that works. This is the top 5 that works. Brandon Nimmo, Jeff McNeil are just on one right now. And we'll talk about Juan Soto here in just a little bit because he is phenomenal at this point. But what do you see out of Brandon Nimmo? Because it's been night and day different at this point with what's transpired over the past 2 weeks with Brandon Nimmo as well.
Yeah, a lot of what you said with McNeil proves to be true with Nimmo as well. He's been someone that hasn't been able to handle that inside pitch as well. And earlier in his career, he's someone that would just work counts and foul those off and wait till he got something over the middle of the plate that he can actually drive into the gaps or even over the wall. Now he's actually catching that fastball in or those pitches in out in front of the plate and being able to drive them down the line. And that just opens the game up so much more. You know, you hear them talk about players hitting the ball to the opposite field will open up the game more for them. But with Nimmo and McNeil, guys that are susceptible to that inside pitch without the bat speed of guys like Soto, Alonso, that you have to worry about, you know, catching and not getting it in enough. These are guys that normally you won't have to worry about that because they don't have the bat speed to necessarily turn around on that. But if they can get the timing right and continue to do that with consistency, that's dangerous for this Mets lineup, and that just opens up the whole field for them. They have to be worried about throwing that pitch inside, and they'll pitch away from him, and those guys can definitely hit it the other way. So you saw with the single day, Nimmo's single was an opposite field single, so he's able to use all fields now, and he's getting that protection from Soto, which we needed. You know, obviously we have Alonso protecting Soto protecting Nimmo, and Lindor is just incredible at the top of the lineup, protection or no protection. Obviously, he's been in a bit of a slump since the broken toe, but that's expected, and it's not much. It's not many games, but it's a lineup that needs to stick. Mendoza needs to stick with this lineup, lefty, righty, no matter who's on the mound against them, because if you're going to consistently start Marte against lefties at the top of the order, you are potentially leaving yourself a bit hamstrung there. You know, you're going to be a bit weakened because Marte is not the same player Nimmo is. And while he has been very good in spurts, you know, especially of late, he is not, I don't think he's the long-term answer there. You know, he's not someone we're going to be seeing much probably in the later parts of the season and past this season. So I think we need to solidify that top 5. And then once the guys start to get healthy and start to produce more consistently, you can start to shape out the bottom of that order from 6 to 9.
Yeah. And even if you're DHing Marte, that's fine. Keep the top 5 the same and bat him 6th or 7th when Vientos comes back. Like it's like you don't need to change that 2 hole, because again, you know, if Marte gets the start, the maximum returns you get from Brandon Nimmo succeeding is going to outweigh anything that Marte gives you. Like that's what that, you know what I mean? And so you can still have Marte's production towards the bottom of the lineup, but just don't, you know, hinder the max return you can get on Brandon Nimmo in that 2 hole is the way I see it. So yeah, from a lineup construction perspective, that's 100% what I would suggest as well. And then, you know, we've given our the credit and flowers to McNeil, to Brandon Nimmo. We gotta talk about Juan Soto, dude.
He's been incredible.
Another double. He walks today. He steals a base today as well, and he hits a double opposite field again, might I add. And his numbers over the past 15 days, let alone 7 days, is incredible. Over the last 15 days, 356 batting average, slugging 756, which is ridiculous. Insane. Over a 1270 OPS in the last week's worth of games. He's hitting 455, and his OPS is over 1350. This is a locked-in version of Juan Soto, and he told you all a month and a half ago, everyone was asking, where's the Soto shuffle? He said, it's coming. It's coming. Like we were having this discussion stream by stream, Zach, earlier this season talking about, everyone's asking us, where's Juan Soto? We paid him all this money, this, that, and the other. And we're like, listen, if June comes around, this is what we said verbatim, by the way, word for word. If June comes around and he's still struggling, then we will press a little bit of a worry button, not a panic button, but maybe perhaps a worry button. But it was always a matter of time with Juan Soto, always a matter of time. So it's really good to see him having that success. And quite frankly, I don't want to even bring him up, but shutting Yankees fans up because they needed to be shut up, man.
Yeah, it was never if, it was always when, and it's come. It's come since the middle of May. We've seen the at bats get better and better as the season's progressed. He's lifting the ball more, and he's using all fields. I mean, this is someone that's hitting the ball into the left field gap for doubles, in for home runs. He's taking pitches over the middle of the plate and driving them out to right field really with authority. And everyone was worried about the ground balls with Soto. I think that was the biggest talking point with him. This is someone over his career. When you look at the numbers, he grounds out at a very high rate. He's trying to hit the top half of that ball to really, hit it as hard as he possibly can. And when he's hitting his home runs, these massive moon shots where he's just creating so much backspin, the ball just continues to pierce through the air. So it was never a worry in my mind about Soto. It was just a matter of, when is he going to come back? And if he's actually acclimating to life in Queens, if he's acclimating, to life here in a Mets uniform, because he did look at times where he's a bit uncomfortable, but you see it now at the walk-off win by McNeil. He was right there celebrating with them. Last night when they had the shutout, they were all doing that dance in the middle of the infield. He's there with the guys. He's loving it. He's taking pictures. So it's nice to see things finally turn, not necessarily for us as Met fans, but just to shut up everyone, Yankees fans and every other fan included, because it was just this nagging from them saying he doesn't like it there. He's not going to be the same player. Well, the numbers might not show it, but he's the same player and he's proving it now. And come the end of the season, the numbers are going to look just as good as they did in the Bronx last year. Maybe not total numbers, but everything else is there with him.
100%. And the impact is going to be probably just the same. It's going to be just the same. And that's the most impressive thing about Juan Soto, is that we have still felt his impact even when he struggled for the first month, a little over a month of the season, and his impact was still felt by just his presence in the lineup. And it's I'm so happy he's a New York Met, man. Like I'm just, if you're anything but happy that he's a New York Met, I don't really know what to tell you. And his defense is also like not too shabby. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I know that he's not the fastest guy out there in right field, but he's actually, it seems like he's put a little bit more importance on his defense, which is good. And also helps that Tyrone Taylor's out there right next to you, making incredible diving catches like he did today on the warning track. I believe Luis Castillo was the one on the mound, and it was a inning-ending diving catch. I mean, just full extension. And that's not the first time we've seen Tyrone Taylor do that even this season. So the defense with Taylor, and you know what, though? I will say, I know the overall numbers, the numbers overall offensively for Tyrone Taylor aren't great. They won't pop out at you, but he gets the job done because he's also a guy that gets on base, right? He could take a 1-for-3 at the walk, and that's 2 times on base towards the bottom of the order. And he does his job in terms of flipping the lineup over to the big guys up top with Lindor, Nimmo, Soto, Alonso, etc. But the other, and Beatty also gets a hit today, which is good to see. Marte gets a double as well to center field on a weird play there. The ball just kept on carrying there. So those guys get base knocks. The other thing here, and if you were wondering, Jeff McNeil 1-for-2 because he got hit by a pitch. The Mets lead the league in hit by pitches yet again. I don't know what it is about this organization, but they are ball magnets. This lineup is and has been a ball magnet. And it sucks because nobody wants to get hit, but it is what it is at this point. But
just another way to get on base, and it's funny, like you saying that since Chavez been here, he said he wants the guys to crowd the plate and get hit. If they're gonna leave that ball, they're gonna throw it inside and allow for you to get on base by a hit by pitch. Take it. No one likes it. It's scary, especially when it gets near the hands, and obviously with Lindor breaking his pinky toe. But that's just another way to clog the base paths. And if at the bottom of the order, if that's how you're going to get on base to flip the lineup over, so be it. We need to get guys on base to have the top of this order driving runs. So it's just another facet of the game. It's not something that's talked about because you can't lean into pitches, but if you can take one there, you can just stand there and just get on base. Everyone wants to drive in, get a big hit and drive in runs, but if you're someone there that can produce a high OBP because you can draw walks and you can get hit by pitches, it's just a nice thing to have.
As long as it hits them in the juicy part of the body, right? And not
stay away
anywhere.
From the hands.
No hands, no head. Like let's not do that, right? I mean, even Alonso too. It's always scary when Alonso gets hit by a pitch. You saw it. It was in San Diego a couple years ago. Then he got hit in the hand, and I think in Atlanta. And then earlier this year, he got hit in the funny bone right on the elbow. He's not wearing an elbow guard. Like that guy's getting like beat up, and he just gets back up, and it's just like, all right, if nothing's broken, I'm playing. Like that's really it, and that's like bulldog mentality. Alonso's a straight dog for that. Like I love it. But okay. The last part of this segment, we got to talk about it, and I know that in particular, this comment.
I can already guess who it is.
Oh, you already know who it is. It's not the most pleasant of discussions, but we'll talk about it anyways. I want to pull up this. Oh, here it is. Ricardo wants to talk about it, but this was a funny comment by Oliver. All the King sources on the extent. Yeah, because Alvarez is struggling, man. I mean, he's got a 660 OPS this season. He's batting 248 for whatever that means. But like, the power is not there. His power is shot. He did hit a home run in Colorado. That's great. Congratulations to him by the way as well. Newborn kid. He was on the paternity list, missed a couple games, and now he's back. This is his first start back, so congrats to him. But with the bat, it just looks like he's just all out of sorts. And Ricardo up in the chat was making a comment about potentially sending him back down to AAA and just getting his swing right and just kind of giving him that, whether it's mechanically or just mentally, like, hey, listen, like we know you're talented, but you're not above like anybody else that's been sent down before with Brett Beatty, Mark Vientos, etc. As a young guy on this team, you need to go down there and get yourself figured out, and hopefully that gives him that sort of that edge and that mentality, because I don't know what it is at this point. I mean, the swing changed for him, and we can get into the numbers of it all, but at the end of the day, he is not the guy that we had here in 2023 when he was putting 20 plus home runs over the fence. And I say it all the time. I don't care if he strikes out at a high rate. I don't care if he's not hitting even 220. If he puts 25 plus home runs over the fence, that is fine. That is fine. We haven't got that. We haven't got that. The power is shot. There's no gap to gap power. He's an opposite field singles hitter, and that's fine. But like,
that's not what he is.
Number one. He was the number one prospect in all of baseball at one point before he got brought up. That's not what number one prospects do. And I hate to say it, but like, who is in charge of the developmental factor here? Because something just went awry in his developmental game. And that presumably was when he got to the major league. So we can go deep further into it than like we should right now, but something's clearly off. And you know what? Given the option of Luis Torrens as your starting catcher, as we've seen a lot so far this season, given that you can have Hayden Sanger, who can make spot starts and is just honestly a guru defensively himself, will get much of that. I would take the calculated risk of, at this point, before the All-Star break, because you're going to need Alvarez in the second half before the All-Star break, getting him down to AAA and just seeing if he can figure something out there.
I definitely think that's an option, given how he's performed. But I think he's too talented to continue to perform like this. I think the swing changes have screwed him up, has screwed up his timing. Everything there, because when he's hitting the ball the other way, he's not hitting it the other way with authority. He's hitting weak singles the other way. And if you can develop that as part of your game, where you're able to drive the ball to the opposite field, yes, you can become an opposite field hitters with less power than you would like, but still with the ability to drive the ball into the gap and potentially over the wall. Right now, unless he really catches one, he's not driving it over the wall, because I think this stance and everything about his approach at the plate has kind of got him screwed up. With all that being said, I don't necessarily love our options. I know Luis Torrens has been good this season. He was great until Alvarez came back up, but since the middle of May, the stats are not there. He has not played well at the plate. He's not played well. The defense is great, and if that's going to be the one dead spot in this lineup, so be it. I think the Mets' best option is to try to figure out how to get Alvarez going, whether that's here in the big leagues or down in the minors. And I trust whatever decision the Stearns and Mendoza makes, because I don't think we're going to see that much of a change if we do send him down. It's just a matter of how are we going to get him going. It's not necessarily like we're demoting him to AAA to improve here at the major league roster, because I don't think Torrens offers that much of an upgrade, if an upgrade at all, over Alvarez. To be honest, I think the approach is better, but the outcomes aren't. He's not this incredible hitter where he's going to produce amazing stats. He's a good defensive catcher that can have decent offensive stats, when it all is said and done. And Hayden Senga is someone who's really just there as a backup. He's not going to be someone you want to start every day. I guess in case of injury, it's a good option to have someone that can receive the ball well behind the plate. But the best course for the Mets is to figure out how to get Alvi going, whether that's here or down in AAA. So it's a loaded question. It's a loaded decision for the Mets, and I'm sure they've been struggling over it themselves, considering even though Alvi hasn't been playing well, he's still getting the lion's share of starts back there behind the dish. So we'll see what comes going forward, but I really don't know what the best course is for the Mets. The best course.
And the reason why he's still getting a lot of starts, even despite the struggle, is one, because catching is a premier position, and it's really hard to figure out the catching position, in which this Mets organization has known all too well in trying to figure out the position. But also, they know that Torrens isn't the future. You have the future right here in Alvarez, presumably, you would hope, right? And so they don't want to stunt that growth, because he's going to be here for the long haul. And that's why I always said, even back months ago, right? You'll probably not see, unless Alvarez is sent down, you will not see Torrens completely take over the starting role by and large. That's going to be Alvarez's position. And so I agree with you too. It's like Torrens is clearly an upgrade defensively over Alvarez, and Alvarez did have the pass ball today, and a ball that he should have definitely caught out of the hand of Edwin Diaz that resulted in one of the Nationals' runs. But even with Torrens' offensive numbers, he has a little bit more consistency and the better approach, like you said. But look at the overall numbers: 232 and a 675 OPS. That's not really any better than Francisco Alvarez and what he's been producing in general. So you know what I mean? It's kind of hard. And at this point, they are the same player. They are a single opposite field singles type of guy, and that's how they are getting on base. And so I agree that the offensive plus, or I guess the return you get from Torrens offensively is not as great as people are making it out to be whatsoever. But I think that a lot of people are tuned into the defense, and Alvarez is kind of, let's call it for what it is, brain farts at times behind the plate. And today was another one of those examples. So I don't know they're gonna have to do something. They're gonna have to do something. And that something in the Mets' best interest moving forward, and I'm not talking about this season only, I'm talking about in the future seasons, is investing in this catcher that you were awaiting for so long. He's going through it right now, but don't let it turn into a Keibert Ruiz 2.0 situation, right? Because Keibert Ruiz was also in the same situation when he went over from the Dodgers to the Nationals, and they're talking about it today in that Max Scherzer Trey Turner deal. Don't let it get to that point, because I think Alvarez is just too talented for that. But they got to figure something out. That's really all I have on that. I do think that they will send, if this continues for another, I want to say week and a half, 2 weeks, they will make that move sometime. I want to say in late June, early July, and get that out of the way before the second half of the season begins. That's my hot take. That's my bold prediction, I should say, if those struggles continue. So we'll monitor and keep an eye out on that. But Yeah, do you have anything else? I really wish I don't really have too much more time, but I really wanted to be on the post game yesterday because what a damn game
Oh
to
my
talk
God.
about with multi home run game from Nimmo, home run from Juan Soto
Soto.
again. David Peterson. David Peterson. If I didn't
Incredible.
have my headset on right now, I'd take my cap off and tip my cap to David Peterson because that guy threw a gem. A
Incredible.
gem. And this rotation is really going to need him to step up. They're going to need everybody to step up, but in
Oh, yeah.
particular, David Peterson to continue on this trajectory in the absence of Kodai Senga hitting the IL. So don't want to talk about it too much, but final thoughts here, whether it's from today's game, yesterday's game, and the sweep in general. And let's sign off, and hopefully everyone has a great rest of their Thursday.
Yeah, I do have one final thought, and it's just what happens now with Acuna and Beatty. I mean, obviously Acuna's struggles have gone way past May. You know, at the end of April is when he really started to struggle, and Beatty, well, after like a 2 week hot stretch, has really cooled off. And what the Mets do with them going forward? I mean, we saw Acuna replace McNeil later in the game, I guess for defensive purposes, and not come through with 2 outs and runners in scoring position. And Beatty, even though he had the hit today, has been kind of nothing for the Mets as of late. So I'm just curious to see what they do with them going forward. If Mauricio eventually takes over that second base job, which is something I guess they have said that he is not comfortable doing. So where the Mets go in terms of second base, third base, obviously until Vientos gets back, and then the DH, if one of these guys can find their way into that spot, or if they can play themselves into a larger role for this team, because it seems as of right now that they might just be placeholders for the time being until Vientos and maybe a deadline acquisition. So it's kind of interesting to see how they play them and what happens going forward, who demands more playing time over the others.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I thought that because I think Rob on a previous stream, I didn't fact check this at the time, and I'm not really sure if Fangraphs is usually good at updating their stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm assuming this is pretty accurate. But what I'm seeing, I think Rob said the other day that Beatty has no more options left. I'm saying that he has one more option left. I'm not saying that they're going to use it on Brett Beatty, but like it's there just in case because I was under the assumption that he had no more options, but I think he has one.
I
So I think
think
Rob
he
misspoke
I think he has one. I
potentially.
saw a lot of this discourse on Twitter that Vientos had the options and Beatty didn't, and I'm pretty sure a big talking point with Beatty is that the Mets left him with one option left in case of
Yeah.
trade. And I do believe he has that. And Vientos was the one that doesn't have the option. So I
Right. I
don't
think it
know
was
there.
let me go check. Let
Yeah,
me go
check it
check
out.
then.
I could
Let
be
me
wrong.
check so Brett Beatty's showing for sure 100% as one. And I think Vientos is did Vientos hit the IL, right?
Yeah.
So Vientos has none. You are
Yeah.
correct. Vientos has none. So yeah, and that makes all the sense in the world. Like I don't think that they were going to leave Brett Beatty without any options, especially from that trade perspective, which I wasn't
Mm-hmm.
even thinking about. So like it's kind of like who's going to take this job because Mark Vientos, it's going to be one of these spots is going to be his, either third base or DH when he comes back, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a given. And then I think 100% Acuna is the odd man out. I think that is
100%.
by far the conclusion here. Um, and so that makes it easy right there to kind of make that switch off. But it's like, how do you work that merry-go-round between Vientos, Mauricio, and Beatty at that point, right? Because Mauricio is also a DH option, but then his other position is third base, and you're just talking about two spots, DH and third base, that are just too crowded, which is why like
Mm-hmm.
it just get this platoon DH business out of here because we're not even talking about Jesse Winker being back. Honestly, I think at this point maybe they try to deal Jesse Winker at the deadline. I know he's a glue guy.
Yeah.
I maybe it won't happen, but like you have to free up some sort of space, or maybe Marte has shown enough at by the deadline, right? As a platoon player for a contending team, another contending team, where they ship him off. There's a glue guy because we know Marte's close to Juan Soto.
Mm-hmm.
Winker is everywhere, and he's embraced being a New York Met. Someone's feelings in this fan base are going to get hurt, and that's the business of baseball, and that's the business of sports. But
I don't.
maybe Do you think either? First of all, that's my main question too. Do you think either of those guys go?
No,
You
I
don't
don't.
think so?
I don't think so. I think the
Maybe.
Mets have kind of adopted really adopted that clubhouse guy. You know, they've adopted the I guess the outlook or the team the building aspect of having those guys that are great for the clubhouse.
Sure.
And you saw it with Jose Iglesias. I mean, he was a key part of the team last year, and I even when the Mets were kind of in that in between spot of buying or selling at the deadline, Iglesias was never brought up as a potential person to find his way on traded away. And so I don't see either of them going, but I do see, the Mets not signing them in the offseason. I think Marte's contract is up after this year, and obviously Winker was only signed to a 1-year deal. So
Yep.
I don't see them trading them, but I do see them being gone after, come season end. And then that just kind of leaves you with Beatty and Mauricio, because I think once Winker gets back, you only have the option to keep one of them. So, I guess Acuna's gone too, but Vientos. So, it's probably going to be Mauricio, considering Beatty doesn't have options. So, I mean, we have some time to talk about that. And I definitely see one or multiple of those three guys, Beatty, Mauricio, and Acuna, being dealt at this deadline, because this is an important deadline for the Mets, where there's not a lot of talent, but there's a lot of positional needs in this trade deadline, guys that they can improve at multiple different positions, whether it's in the bullpen or in center field, or even DH if they want to go the route of implementing a full-time DH as opposed to the platoon.
I've always said, even during his hot streak, I said this directly to you. I always thought that Brett Beatty was still going to be on his way out no matter what. I always thought that was going to be the case. And that hot streak just helped the Mets in terms of leverage. But I think that, and Rob said this on our pregame yesterday, and I full-heartedly agree, if the Mets had a choice to get rid of one, I think that they probably would prioritize trying to sell another team on Acuna being the guy still at some point. And maybe that's why, coupled with the fact that he's not hitting at all, maybe that's why they're not really giving him the opportunities to do so, because they want to preserve any value that he has left in the eyes of another team, perhaps. But still a long ways away. And by the way, the Marte and Winker thing with them being gone at the end of the season that you just mentioned, it only feeds into my Kyle Schwarber to the Mets in 2026 narrative. Let's go.
Oh,
I'm going to be saying
man.
that all offseason long. Wait until the offseason comes. I'm going to be saying the first stream that I do, whether it's with you, Rob, I don't care, myself, I'm talking about Kyle Schwarber and how this guy needs to be a New York Met next season. Can you imagine Kyle Schwarber adding him into being the re-signing Pete Alonso and then signing Kyle Schwarber? Can you imagine that top five in your offense? No questions. Who's your top five anymore? No question.
Not even top
Oh
six.
man,
McNeil would be behind Schwarber, or Schwarber behind McNeil. So it would just be a
I'm getting
deadly, deadly
excited, Zach.
lineup. It would be a deadly, deadly lineup.
Hey, listen, let's win the World Series first and then use that as a
Exactly.
persuasion factor for Schwarber to come and try to repeat with us. Let's do that. All right.
100%.
We are getting our hopes very up high here on this stream, but that's what happens when your team is 21 games over 500 and absolutely rolling. This was the Mets post-game show with CP and Zach. I definitely appreciate it. As always, if you enjoy these discussions, hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. Please, please, please. It means a lot if you would do both, if not one of them. If you've already hit the subscribe button, hit the thumbs up if you're in this stream. If you're over on X and you enjoy these lively discussions, if you enjoy the streams and all the content, come over to the YouTube channel. It does make a difference. Come over to the YouTube channel and hit that subscribe button. We definitely appreciate it. Very interactive stream. I love the interactiveness. I love all the comments and thoughts and opinions from this fan base, because this fan base has a lot of thoughts and opinions, because there's a lot of thoughts and opinions to be had about all of these positions and how many guys are going to be staying, are going to be going, are going to be sent down. It's fun. And seeing all this movement on this roster up until this point and still finding a way to be the best team in baseball record-wise is pretty impressive. I will say that. And that is very largely due to Carlos Mendoza, again, pushing all the right buttons and handling and managing these plethora of assets that he has at his disposal on any given day. So I definitely appreciate it, Zach. Thank you for the time. Apologies again for the delayed start to the stream and the difficulties in StreamYard. They got to get their act together. That's all I'll say. So StreamYard, anybody that's employed by StreamYard is watching this, tell your managers, tell your bosses, like they got to step their game up, or we're moving to a different platform. I'm stamping that. All right. I appreciate it. This is the Mets post game. We'll see you all on the stream potentially tomorrow, maybe the day after. We'll see as schedules allow. It's a Mets victory, a sweep of sorts against a division rival. Appreciate it. Let's go Mets. Peace.
Let's go Mets.